The vision of the aviation sector is to position Ghana as the preferred aviation hub for business in West Africa. The Kotoka International Airport has recently been expanded to make it one of the best connected countries in the world. The Tamale and Kumasi airports, being upgraded to the status of international airports, will be completed to open up opportunities and connections to Ghana. Smaller airports such as the Sunyani and Takoradi airports will be expanded to handle current and future capacity requirements, including emergency, medical, and tourism purposes. The vision of the maritime sector is to provide an efficient, reliable, multimodal transport and contribute to enhance regional economic development within a safe, affordable, and sustainable environment. There has been a significant
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us here at the Ministry of Information for our very first brief for this week. This afternoon, we have two briefs to share with you. The first will be delivered by the Director General of the National Development Planning Commission, and it has to do with a very important constitutional requirement that we are in the process of fulfilling. If you look at the Constitution 1992, Article 36, Clause 5 requires a president, when elected, to prepare and submit to the entire country more or less a 4-year governance program, the actual program with which you would govern. You may have said some things during your campaign and responded to some things during your campaign, but when you win power, the Constitution under Article 36.5 requires you to put together a coordinated program of your social and economic policies and submit same to the country through Parliament. We're in the process of fulfilling this, and the NDPC will this afternoon update us on the consultations that are ongoing to complete and deliver this to the people of Ghana through the Parliament of Ghana. Additionally, there are a couple of other things that the NDPC has been embarking upon, and they would update us on that, including Ghana's participation in the 2021 UN Food Systems activities. And then, like how they keep saying, so how do you predict and how do you know that if you do this to this part of the economy, this is the kind of growth, this is the kind of jobs that you will get? They've been developing what they call the Ghana Macroeconomic Model. It will go a long way to help our economic development agenda. They'll spend some time to share it with us this afternoon. Also this afternoon, the government of Ghana has just completed its mid-year review, or its internal mid-year review of work done so far. The President and the senior government officials, ministers and advisors just completed a 3-day retreat at the Peduasi Lodge. Key among the developments that have been reviewed and on which action is about to be taken very quickly are, of course, the economy, and then our increasingly worrying situation when it comes to terrorism and piracy that appears to be closing in on us from our northern borders and then from the coasts. And I have a brief to share with you on those developments. But first, let me introduce to you some of the dignitaries who are here with us. Dr. Winifred Enim Odami, Senior Technical Advisor to the Director General. Mrs. Crispina Boame, Chief Accountant. Dr. Nano Parijan, Officer in charge of M&E. Mrs. Angela Mefa Yaboy, Acting Director, General Services. Dr. Felix Aduyobo, Director, Development Policy and Planning. And while at that, let me ask to come to the podium the Director General of the NDPC, Dr. Kojo SCM Mensah Abrampa, who will take us through the first brief this afternoon. And then when he's done, I will deliver the brief on the economy and security as well. Doc, welcome.
And good afternoon to all of you. Thank you very much, my good friend and Honorable Minister, for information. This afternoon, we are honored from the National Development Planning Commission to have been granted this big opportunity to address the nation and then bring them to be familiar with what we've been doing at our corner there, opposite the Jubilee House. We have a clear mandate, which is in the Constitution, the Article 87, which gives us two primary responsibilities. The first one is to advise the President on issues related to policy strategies and also programs and projects of planning in the country. The second one is to embark upon key studies and also be able to develop development plans, rolling plans for the country, the long-term, medium-term, and the short-term perspectives, which then fits into our budget for all the implementation results that we realized. So this afternoon, we're going to go through our logical process of how we develop these plans and what we're doing currently, and then also take up the issue of going forward, how we're dealing with the critical issues of food and nutrition security, preparing ourselves for the big global conference which is coming up in New York in September. And then so the second part, a process which we initiated some time ago on the Ghana macroeconomic model and the result that is coming from it and its effect and implications for our country. And then finally, we'll give you tidbits about the crucial assignment we're currently on, which is the development of the medium-term development plan for the years 2022 to 2025, as the one we're currently going through is ending in 2021. Thank you very much. So that's how we're going to go. Let me start by saying that there have been a lot of discussions, and I hear it sometimes in the media and also on the corridors of departments and even the private sector. Oh, we don't have a plan in the country. Oh, where are we going? Yes, we have a plan and plans. And we've had plans for a very long time. The key thing about plans is the implementation, because it begins with the process of, first of all, listening to the people, okay? And that is the basic one. We've gone through the best time for planning is now, because we have a long perspective plan which looks at where we would like to be as a country at the time that will be 100 years. And it's looking at it in 4 phases. Giving for ourselves a goal by which Ghana will be an industrialized and economic and inclusive economy so far as development is concerned. Looking at the second area where we can say that, yes, we have equitable access to social facilities and be able to enhance and create our human capital. The third area is looking at how we can also develop in terms of our technology, in terms of our infrastructure, and in terms of the settlements that we live in and organize ourselves as human beings and people from Ghana, and how this will also relate to the environment that we live in to make it sustainable. The third area has to do with the issue of governance, how we can live as safe people united with a common pursuit, and be able to establish institutions that can sustain our development. These are long-term perspectives. Through this long-term perspective, it comes interface, what we call political technical interface, because this is a technical document which thinks about the future, bringing in the risk, identifying some of the things that we can do potentially, and then leveraging on international situations for our development. The second area is also the political perspective, that a manifesto has been sold. there's a conviction of a leader who has gone round the country and sold an idea to the people, and the people have given the leaders the mandate to rule the country. And therefore, there is the need to have an interface of this technical document and this political perspective. And it is a dialogue of this document which results in what we call the Coordinated Program for Economic and Social Development Policies. So it becomes a document which fertilizes these ideas, the political convictions and processes, and also the technical projections. At this juncture, it is sent to Parliament for approval. Once it goes to Parliament for approval, it becomes a national document. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that document, the coordinated program. There's one which is run from the year 2017. And as the minister said, as soon as the president is elected by the 35+5, you're supposed to produce that, given a 2-year margin. And as I said, this is the best time for planning, because for the last one in 2017, we did not go through 2 years. By the first 6 months of the presidency, this document had been produced and submitted to Parliament in October that very year. So for the first time in our history, we had a coordinated program, which is a harmonized vision of this country, bringing in the elected and then also bringing in the technical dimension to pull together to give us a vision for our country for the next 4 years, was approved by the Parliament by October the first year. And so it was a good time for planning, meaning that we're able to develop the medium-term development framework, which is the specific activities for every sector to pursue in order to achieve this concerted vision, was also produced in that very year. And therefore, the very first year, we were able to have a budget the following year, which was influenced by this thinking. And I'm sure a lot of you saw that, because the framework is also what indicates to the various sectors, the regional coordinating councils, and the district assemblies what they are supposed to do. And this is currently what we are pursuing. So you look at it, the long-term perspective, the coordinated program, which looks at 8 years, and then also the development framework, which looks at specifically 4 years. Why we do that is that, in that sense, you're able to reduce the assumptions from that whole period of about 40 years into 8 years, and consequently into a 4-year period, where the assumptions are very, very perceptible and most probably coming up. So that's what we did, and that's what we're going through. That we did the first phase, we are going through a second phase, which is going to start with implementation in 2022. We've gone through a national consultation process. I have personally told almost all the regions in the country, I'm left with only one to go to, all the regions. I've met 32 district assemblies, having discussions with them. Why? Because it is necessary for us to build a concerted agenda, for all of us to go through it and then pursue. So within the 4 years, what are we pursuing? The discussion is that within the 4 years, bringing together all the long-term perspective, the president coordinated program, we're saying that the first one, we're going to create a sustainable economy which is inclusive and be able to resolve some of the economic challenges that we're going through. So for the first 4 years, we need to create, the second 4 years, we need to create a stable economy and then also revitalize, okay, given what we've gone through with the COVID. The second area is also to sustain the burden of these social facilities, okay, which is very important, and more precisely to look at the development of our human capital. Why are we emphasizing that? We have the advantage of now going through what we call the demographic dividend. It means that our youth board is growing. The number of the people who can consider to be the youth between 15 and 35 is enlarging, is growing. And there is the need for us to take advantage of this population. And therefore, the emphasis on human capital development in the first 4 years is very, very important. The other thing which we are also doing is to also burden our infrastructure. I'm sure we just showed a video of also a long-term Ghana infrastructure plan which we have developed. And within the 4 years, we're looking at how we can take advantage of some of these economic infrastructure. We heard about roads, you heard about the railways, you heard about the ports, you also heard about some of the social infrastructure, and most excitingly, the ICT and digitalization process which this country has initiated. This is crucial for these 4 years because it is the time for us to leverage on what we have built already, the experience we've gone through, particularly with the COVID situation, and how we can leverage that. In this part of the 4 years is also to revitalize, to really come up again after the COVID. And therefore, I'm sure you heard about the CARES program, okay? The COVID-19 alleviation and revitalization of enterprise support program, which was established by the government. And this is incorporated as part of this medium-term program to look at specific areas which we can take advantage of. Precisely the digitalization process, the support for SMEs, and I'm sure the last month you heard about the launching of the GEA, which is taking up this process. We're also looking at how we can take advantage of the development of the pharmaceutical sector, and which was obvious for us during the COVID time, that this is an area we can take advantage of. We're also looking at how we can also take advantage and look at our housing situation. We saw it, how we went virtually far wanting during the COVID period, and how we can take advantage of building and improving upon our housing and not just houses. This is very important for us to look at this into the third term. But primary among this, in this second term of our medium-term plan, is the creation of jobs, targeting the youth, emphasizing on areas that can help us to build not only the national economy, but the local economies, because that is what can be looked at as inclusive economic development. How do we build our local economies? How do we pursue the national agenda of job creation? The agenda for jobs and prosperity is not only for national institutions, but it's only also for us, particularly those of us at the district level. How do we bring the districts to also fashion their plans in such a way that it can respond to building their own economy? And then also to mobilize the necessary revenue, which is key in terms of our agenda for Ghana going beyond aid, creating wealth. Creating wealth means that we must have a means by which we can generate this wealth and mobilize the necessary revenue. So that is for the second medium term. From this medium term and from the plans and the strategies of the various sectors, then we move on to the next stage, which is looking at what we call the development plan. Bringing all this together, we develop a national development plan. And then from the plan, we also move to the next stage, which is the public investment program. This is important because this time around, the statutes have already been passed. The Act 1039 is there, and then we also had a public investment program legislative instrument, which is 2411, which is also going to guide us, meaning that every capital project, every infrastructure project, this has been a bane in the past, but we're saying that for now, every infrastructure project must go through a phase of critical project analysis. Critical project analysis, be able to assess the cost benefits of each capital project before it is implemented. And not only that, but also look at the whole resource flow and resource schedule. So we look at the life of the project and how we're going to finance it before we say a tick, let it go. In such a way that you avoid a situation where projects are terminated halfway or not completed. Okay? We look at the whole stream of the project from the beginning to operation and to maintenance. And that is an act supporting, an airline supporting has been passed. And Ministry of Finance is managing that strongly. It is only then that we can go to look at what we call the annual development priorities. So you look at the process, simple logic, the long-term perspective, the political vision, and this is fertilized into the coordinated program, which is an 8-year process, move into the 4-year term, which is the framework. Then you have the sectors and the districts preparing their plans. These plans are pulled together as a national plan. Then it goes to the public investment program. Then it goes to the next stage, where we look at it in annual terms and set up the annual priorities. And then finally to the budget, and then implementation. So the budget, there's an approval and then implementation. But critical to this is also the issue of monitoring and evaluation. We've already done a midterm assessment of the medium-term plan, which we did in the past, which has become key input moving forward, bringing in lessons. And critical amongst it is what we've gone through as a COVID period. And therefore, we are giving a lot of credence in this plan to resilience building, such that in case there's any other thing hitting us as a country, how do we come back? Okay? And that is very important in this process. So monitoring and evaluation is key for us. We've already generated reports to that effect in respective sectors. And then finally, reporting, which we do annual progress report and send it to Parliament. So basically, this is what we've been doing there as our process, this logical process. Whatever activities that I'm going to talk about is just an expansion of this logical process. And all that we have done is to create leverage, create logic, create predictable sequence, create what we call complementary activities, because different sectors are pursuing different programs, and it's up to us to make sure that they complement each other in the pursuit, and then also finally meet the priorities of the government and what we want to pursue as people of the country as approved by Parliament. Let me add a few things in terms of activities, and one of it which I'll mention specifically has to do with our coordinating activities. We've been enjoined as a National Development Program to help in pursuing these coordinating activities. And therefore, we've gone through a nationwide consultation. My team has been on the field since January, working out, getting views from the private sector, from district assemblies, from the civil societies, meeting the various sectors in a continuous meeting. Almost every fortnight, they're having meetings to pull this together. And this is what has resulted in this medium-term development plan. So almost every sector is tackled in it, and the framework will give you an indication as to the target, the output, what we need to do as activities, what institutions are involved, the role of the civil society, the private sector, the public sector in this pursuit. And now that we have an act guiding the PPP, this is crucial in bringing in the private sector to this interface. The second one, which I would like to mention, has to do with the ongoing national dialogue on Ghana food systems. This is a contribution to a global food systems conference in September. And it's looking at how Ghana, there are 5 major areas which we are pursuing. But one of the things which we have interested ourselves is institutional coordination. Because to have a reliable food system, sustainable food system which can provide for us not just food, but nutrition. We have it in our camp proverb, Pintimbia Yome. No, it doesn't work in this situation. You have to eat food that is nutritious. And that's what we are pursuing as a country. And we are coordinating because it has to do with the health sector. It has to do with education. It has to do with water and sanitation. It has to do with agriculture. It has to do with the trade and industry, because the processing and other things has to go through that. And it is for us at National Development Planning Commission to bring all these views together to present at the conference. In fact, just on last Friday, we had a meeting for the African Caucus, and a good presentation was done by the Ministry of Agric, presented by the Deputy Minister. Fantastic speech. Just within 5 minutes, and he was able to bring what encapsulates Ghana's concerns and what we will bring to the table. And this is what we will be doing at this summit called by the UN Secretary General. So we've been working on that throughout this year, in addition to the medium-term development plan. One exciting thing which I would like to mention has to do with the development of the macroeconomic model. As I said, planning is not magic. It's not a prophetic activity. No. It's pulling figures together, doing an objective analysis to be able to bring to today's terms what the future looks like. This is basically what we do. So bringing these figures together, we're able to predict our trend in terms of employment that can be generated from these activities, government policies, and the present situation. We also think through and do projections as relate to sometimes our interest, our fiscal situation, the revenues that we're going to generate, the kind of expenditures that we would like to make, our debt situation, and then also the economy in general in terms of the respective sectors. The contribution of agriculture, a contribution of industry, contribution of services to our growth and what we call the rest sector. And these are things which we have very good experts at National Development Planning Commission. They've been working on this for the past 2 years and even beyond. And sleeplessly, they've been able to come out with figures which is very, very reliable. We tried it during the COVID period and did a lot of analysis through that, for which we presented to the ministers, respective ministers, for their consumption and usage. And now we're very sure that, yes, what we have is quite concrete. We shared with the respective institutions, the Bank of Ghana, Ministry of Finance, the Economic Management Team, and also the Ghana Revenue Authority, the Ghana Statistical Service, of course. They provided primarily all the inputs, and we also shared that with some of the research institutions. We're doing this with a big collaboration with the University of Cape Coast Economics Department and also ISA, and this has been very, very fruitful. What we've done is that this economic forecasting will go to enrich our policy activities, because other institutions are doing that. It helps us to do comparative studies and be able to help for our policymakers to be quite certain, because we bring out these assumptions and monitor these assumptions. As these assumptions continue to hold, it gives us the conviction that this will be primarily the result. If the assumptions are of course, not holding, and there are new factors, then we begin to work on it, how these new factors will work on. For example, in 2020, a lot of growth projections. We knew that Ghana would be growing at about 6.5. And then we saw along the line that, no, this is not possible. So we had to do a lot of projections and came out with that. The maximum we can go is around 1%. And lo and behold, this model came very close to that. The deviation was just a minute, decimal point. So it gives us a lot of hope. And this is what we do at the National Development Planning Commission, going through this logic, reducing and bringing certainty to our economic development, social development, environmental infrastructure development, and also accountability. So I thank you this afternoon for this opportunity, and given what we've shared with you, I'm sure if there are any other questions, we'll do well. I have my technical team here so that we can respond to it. But we thank you, and we have a lot of documents there which you can address. Many of them. We have them on our website. We have them physically at our outfit, and many of them are here. A lot of the things that I've mentioned are also published, and you can interact with them when we leave this space. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, I'll ask you to kindly resume your seat.
Yes, thank you.
While we reiterate our position for the brief that you shared with us this afternoon, including the work on the medium-term program that is time to be reviewed as part of the consultation process. Lisa, I will give you an opportunity to ask your questions, and we'll provide answers as we go forward. I want to share with you a final brief for today, then we'll take questions on everything together. As I mentioned earlier, the government just completed its internal mid-year review of work done so far. President and his ministers just completed a 3-day cabinet retreat in Yasi on the same, and had the opportunity to review a number of developments. We have challenges with sound. Yes. Please hold on briefly for them to correct this. Shall we go? Okay, so can we go now? Can we go now? Okay. So we'll take our second brief for the day, which follows from the cabinet retreat that was just completed, which had the opportunity to examine work done so far in the governance of this country in the first 6 months of the Akufo-Addo administration, about two major things stood out. And I think in the next couple of weeks, you would see and hear us delve into them some more. A review of economic performance so far. You would recall the growth trajectory on which we were between 2017 and 2019, and how COVID caused a major dip in our growth as a country, and the gradual opening up of the Ghanaian society so that economic activity can kick back into steam for us to recover. The cabinet was briefed on the recovery so far. I believe the numbers are partly available for the first quarter, about 3.1% growth. And then for the second quarter, the latest numbers, it is my understanding, are coming in. The minister responsible for finance, having shown these numbers to cabinet, etc., will be having the opportunity to appear before the country through parliament. My understanding is by the 28th of this month, to provide a lot more detail on the various sectoral recovery programs and how far we have come, what remains outstanding, where we still have challenges, and the kind of effort that is required to carry us forward. But another area that also came up very strongly at this cabinet review is the growing incidents of terrorism and piracy along our borders, and the kind of challenge that it begins to portend for us here in Ghana. Now, if you have followed what is going on in the West African sub-region, the incidents of terrorism and piracy are on the increase. And literally every day they are drawing closer south, which means closer to our borders here in the Republic of Ghana. Now, the government will wish to assure citizens that it will continue to take all appropriate measures to ensure that Ghana is protected from the increasing risks of terrorist activity and piracy that is always coming closer to our borders. In the last few months, countries that share borders with Ghana, including Burkina Faso and Cote d'Ivoire, have experienced a series of terrorist attacks, with the most recent one, I think, in Burkina Faso. And then to our south, the Gulf of Guinea is also getting inundated with piracy attacks. And it puts us in a pretty difficult situation. Just to recap, I think first, 2 Spanish journalists and an Irish national were abducted and killed near a reserve in eastern Burkina Faso. That was around the 26th of April, 2021. And then a second act of terrorism in Burkina Faso, May 3rd, Cordial. According to the reports, at least about 30 people were killed by gunmen in this particular incident. Another incident, Burkina Faso, June 5, 2021. That's the one after which the president had to go on behalf of ECOWAS. And it happened in a village called Solam in the Yaga province, bordering Niger. And the reports are that the armed men killed about 160 people in what has been documented as the country's worst terrorist attack in recent years. Now, what is worrying is that the attacks are gradually coming closer to our northern border. So on the 29th of March, for example, 2 soldiers and a policeman were killed overnight when 2 security positions came under attack in Ivory Coast's border with Burkina Faso. So these attacks are now coming down as much as possible. The army statement from Cote d'Ivoire mentioned about 60 heavily armed terrorists coming in from Burkina Faso to conduct that attack there. Now, in recent weeks, based on shared intelligence, Ghana's intelligence agencies have had to alert the security agencies up north to beef up troop deployments and intelligence gathering as these activities continue to increase and appear to be making their way down south. There is now also evidence that Ghanaians, or at least one Ghanaian, confirmed to have been recruited by some of these terrorist groups to participate in their activities there. And if you followed the history of terrorism around the world, once they recruit people from your country and use them there and people come back into the jurisdiction, then you begin to have challenges of cells growing up within your country, etc. So some of these latest developments of Ghanaians being involved now create very, very severe worry for us. Cabinet has been briefed on the growing, worrying nature of these threats and the preparedness of the state security agencies to counter them. But we believe it is important to let the public know that these are some of the challenges, and the public has a role to play also in alerting security agencies and being aware so that intelligence gathering is made easier for any necessary responses. Now already the administration in the last 4 years, as I'm sure you've noticed, has invested a lot into retooling, particularly our military, and providing some logistics for them up north. But there's the need to do a lot more. And the administration assures the Ghanaian public that they will continue to strengthen the measures that are aimed at providing or preserving the safety of the Ghanaian people. And at the same time, we also request of the citizenry to be aware and to draw the attention of the security agencies to any activities going on that they may find abnormal or of concern, particularly where there are people showing up in communities trying to recruit young men and women for various causes. It will be in our collective interest to alert the security agencies so that they can act accordingly. Now, these two are some of the most prominent discussions that took place, or that Cabinet had the opportunity to spend time on, particularly the security situation becoming a very worrying one. And we thought it's important to let you know at this point in time. So that will bring us to the end of our briefs. I will try and sum up in three, and then I would invite the Director General to join me as we take our questions. DG, you didn't sum up yours in three, or your tree is questionable? You did O-level tree, so I would invite you to sum up yours in three. But first, let me deal with the security brief in three. Abayanya brebe nansa ebunkompo akohwe adwuma bosome beye nsie ya efi asie abanya tumi aye ne de aka kire wo se ye ni titiru no mu no enema mienu bi abededia beye na watwe mienu miensa da ni mi be hu se oman no efi asie etu eho anamon akwa kire sin dia na ye fi asie aye no baako ye oman no sikasem ene ni mpuntuo yenyine ni mpuntuo na ekoso 2017 2018 2019 ansana ya record ye wo covid no eba ya ema ye mpuntuo no ekofom na 2021 yi na ye hwe nim se ebefi ase ne ya ne ema ebema mpuntuo no emu asan ekenya se na wutie nkomo a ewo krom a utumi hu se yare ne bae no ne sene ya yetoto ne ma bebre mu adwuma nkofo nkwa adwuma na se ne wokwa ochena nkọ ne ade no ama yesika sem ne ahoden akofom ama ahokyere akosoro kakra nti ehu hia se ntemtem no yebebiebie na yetumi afi yadwuma ase na oman no sika sem ne mpunto akọ nanim na mfie bosome miensa edikan na afie we mu no emse mpunto na fi ase so wohwe statistical service nkire ya no mde man na yakoye nimbe o hanchiche mu miensa na yakiri po baako bosome miensa etoso biomi besi juni eno so mde hu krata aba ba kire cabinet a enche bia finance minister emse be 28th se me data na correct be 28th obeba parliament na waba be the friend media review no na waba be ma nyina ye hu ba bia isi kasem ejina ene ma aka eche wo se ye na etumi ema o man sika sem na ni mpuntu pejan tentem na oba behwe na odini na ba betudwa na ye ka na sa no so ade ba ko so ama ma menka se ye nyina ya bohu kakra ene etuate dom a atiesi West Africa potem ha sei no na tifi ho wo hwe Burkina Faso mfa fiti Mali ne nkeka ho ne ade ba ya ye hu kakra ɛno nti na abere bi amali asɛm no ba na ɔmampanin ne mpanimfoɔ ani ɛbrɛ wɔ so ɛsan sɛ ɛhɔ ɛkɔ so ɛgyigya saa na atuate dɔm no anya kwan yɛ de ɔmo pɛ wɔ hɔ na ɔmo de ɔmo nneɛma na ɔmo yɛ no ɔmo de ɛsane ba nanse ya ntem sɛ wode waso ato fam a April ya ɛm sɛ sɛnkyerɛfoɔ bɛyɛ mmienu ɛwɔ Burkina Faso atuate dɔm yi akyi wɔn kun wɔm May nipa bɛyɛ duasa ɛwɔ Burkina hɔ a ɛho so ɔmo ɛto hyɛ wɔn so tutu wɔm tuo ne adeɛ ekun wɔm June ya June 5 aba bɛsia kɔ nipa ɔha eduasia 160 ɛna wɔn san to hyɛ wɔn so a ɛtutu asɛm wɔn ekun wɔn ama wɔn ahwere wɔn nkwa no krampo deɛ ECOWAS panin Ghana man panin na wɔsɔ ɔkɔ hɔ ɛkɔmɔ wɔn yakɔ na wɔn nnwuma no afei ɛbɛn aman a ɛbɛn po ɛwɔ West Africa wokɔ Ivory Coast a sɛ wɔn border hɔ no ebi abɛnbɛn hɔ yɛso yɛ deɛ no sɛ ebi mbɛnbɛn hɔ nkakrakra Ivory Coast deɛ yɛ a na yɛka ho asɛm 29th of March bɛyɛ 2 soldiers ɛnam sɛ 1 policeman na wɔn to hyɛ wɔn so ɛyɛ wɔn ayakayaka de wɔn so hwere wɔn nkwa na sɛ nansen nso wode waso ato fam a Ghana intelligence agencies na wɔsɛ wɔn bɔ police for immigration for ne soldier for kɔkɔ sɛ nneɛma bi a wɔn ehu ɛwɔ yɛ border regions hɔ no yɛdi agorɔ asaafo ne bi ebi wura yɛ mɛmu ha sei ɛnyɛ no nko sesei de ama sɛ yɛn nyinaa asan abɔ hu kakra ka ho ne sɛ yɛnya nyinasoɔ sɛ ebi mu ebetumi abɛfa Ghanafoɔ bi mu wɔ ha de wɔn akɔka saa adeɛ no ho wɔ hɔ na sɛ wahwɛ saa adeɛ wei sɛnea wɔn yɛ no wɔ wiase bebrebe a wɔn tumi bɛfa bi fi kurom de kɔ hɔ a owie wɔ hɔ a sɛ fie na ɔde ba nti ama yɛn nyinaa sɛ abɔyɛ pusu kakra a ɛwɔ sɛ yɛpagya yɛ bambɔ no emu ebi nso sɛ wohwɛ yɛn nsuo yi so a ɛpo yi so a deɛ frɛ no pirates etuate dɔm na bi wɔn de nsuo so adwuma na wɔn yɛ no wɔn kyekye ships na wɔn gyegye nkɔfoɔ nneɛma ne adeɛ no wɔn so wɔn agorɔ no emu epagya a ɛno so baa na ɛbɛn yɛn nsaase no nti baabi a yɛgyina no na wohwɛ yɛ West Africa ha yɛ akɔyɛ sɛ ahanko ana asɛ asomdwe kakra ɛwɔ baabi bebree no nneɛma yɛkɔ so wɔ hɔ no ɛnyɛ wokɔ Nigeria banditry kidnapping ne adeɛ ɛno so mu pagya ɛwɔ hɔ nti ɛho akɔhia sɛ yɛbɛtu anamɔn na yɛahwɛ na yɛahyɛ yɛ sapɔ mu nsuo na sɛ mano si sumina so biribi mpo ɛbɛn a yɛtumi ntɛntɛm nara ɛtu so sa na ɛso ɛho akɔhia so sɛ yɛne ɔmanfoɔ so bɛdi nkɔmmɔ sɛ anuanom deɛ ɛkɔ so ni to obiara ama n'ani ɛnna hɔ na baabi a wote baabi a wowɔ wohu sɛ biribi kɔ so a ɛnsɛ mfata obi abɛwura hɔ a ɔboaboa nkɔfoɔ ano wohu deɛ ɔde wɔn yɛ sɛ ɔde wɔn kɔ ha ne adeɛ so a wama mpanimfoɔ aso ate na saa anɔmɔnto bi wɔ hɔ a yɛtumi atu saa anamɔ no aban bɛkɔ so ayɛ deɛ a wɔsɔ nyina na sɛ ntɛm yɛhwɛ a wo sɛ aban mfidie ahodoɔ soja amɔ kaa ne adeɛ wɔsɛ yɛtɔ ɛde kɔ bɔ yɛ bɔda no ho ban ɛwɔ hɔ no yɛdi kan yɛ bi yɛkɔ anim na yɛbɛhwɛ deɛ wɔsɛ yɛtumi yɛ ɛde bɔ ɛho ban ɛwɔ ɛsoro hɔ yɛdam ase ɛwɔ saa nkɔmmɔ wɔ ɛsɛ ho so now let me put you on the spot. If you can sum up for us in about 2 to 3 minutes, then we'll take the general questions in as many languages as we can.
Na share na edit to edi no sabe wadi kan abwa pro enu na manfo hwe ya yeto aba edema wo yenso a yewo national development planning commission yenso ye de yankasa yadwene ni adesua so ekire ye wo oman hyehye kwan na no ne edi mienu nyina bom yetina ho eye brofo me fa ne dialogue na we so twi ne beka nkomodie a mpuntu nkomodie e wo ho no ye hyehye ni nyina ne akabom na ye de abeto parliament anim yeguso ye de no afie na eno atwa nti yekoye nim no ho hyehye nyina wie a ye wo de brofo me ka chen se draft anase atworo wie akase bobɔ no po ye de akoto cabinet anim eno nso echi no ene ye mfie nwotwe na ehwe asa na mfie nan no nso ye obibi e medium term development framework and if you nine and say ya ben ho pa no no and yema yesusu ye nyina na chese wo hwe susudie na idea ye betumi ayet ya ben ho eno no sa mfie nine no ye no so ya sase ye gina de aban na ni da so no so ekọ egba pro se aban de esi na ni so se kwan bia so kanka ye sika adwuma ye ankasa se benya adwuma ye ene ade esi so ti akọ regions ni nyina amanto ni nyina amansi ni nyina mene medwumafo yakọ ne nkofo didi nkomo mo ye adwuma ewo omo aye omo adwuma eye civil society for omo so eye omo adwuma efa eboa nipa ye mpuntuo ena ban na ankasa nso ne hyehyɛ ya kan nyina bom aya sa framework no medium term development framework ye hyehyɛ de mfie nan no te de akoto eye ministry bia anim ena district bia anim to omo so de omo hyehyɛ no aba aya nso ye nsa akasa adre ye gusua ye hwehwɛ ye mo no se ne ebe ani na betumi apopɔ na afoa aban na ni da so no eno ne ade a egusua ye ho dwuma ye di ho dwuma ye bewie ye wie afie bekɔ wie ne je se ye wie a omo de beye budget adwuma na ede aye nhyehyɛ ne ede akɔ eni na nye nhyehyɛ keke ye hu se Ghana so ye tu anamon ekwan ye fa so ye nhyehyɛ ye tum di ye adwuma mmira ye hwi ase beye sa medium term planning framework ya na se mmira atwam no na che se wo fa ye nhyehyɛ na emu aduanan pɛ ene atum ye adwuma ye susun afie no ekodu emu aduoson na che se nhyehyɛ ya aban di si na ni so mafo nya di si eni so oha no emu aduoson de etumi pagya de ye adwuma na wo hwɛ de esi covid ni nyina achi na se etumi ayesa de a na ya de akɔ enim nti ye nhyehyɛ de akɔ ne nhyehyɛ na ye kɔ enim no eniema mienu potipa de si enim se ne be ya covid no de to ye nyina na to nkyema to ye nyina no ebetumi apagya ye ho bio ena ye kɔ enim so ade ne ebetumi aye a se bisasa to ye nkyɛ no mpo ebitu ye biewa ye betumi asa agina ho na ye tu anamo ene so ya de a yesi so pa wosa mfie nan a egusue na ye gidi se mfie nan ne bedu no ne ye tumi asa akɔ ye chia bedu kwan a na ye fa so a ye mpuntuo no koso no eye average of 7.1% no ye nkɔ enim kwa na ye tumi aban ho na ye tumi ade ato aso nti we ni hyehyɛ National Development Planning Commission ye pese ye de betu amanfo ani aya na ye ti se aman kura ni hyehyɛ we anim na yimfa na ye won hyehyɛ pa ye won kofo a aman yi ati sikadi atua ye ka bosumi bia ye dwen kwan hyehyɛ a ye na hyehyɛ no so ye nye saa hyehyɛ a megidi se nka bi mpa na nka enye se mpo ne yeti na mo hyehyɛ a ye nti bibi mpo to ya etumi sa ye chi ba ntentem ebeye nti ye adwumadi a ye di no eno no ade ba ko so ye ka di si so bio eni se yetumi aye adesu asisi yetumi di hwe yenim ekọ yesuka entoto ye no ena ba ko so a oman wiase na ba behia adwen kwan a ye befa na yeduane yetumi abọ ho ban na yetumi akoyeni saa biri ya ye wo mu ise obefa kuro bi so na ekutuo aprogu kwan ho saa de ye be de ne abọ ho ban se empro na yetumi di aye dibi yetumi di asi ho a da bra ye hia na betumi di aduduma obehwe na yedua ne die mu asem ni nyina no eno ne ade a ehia ekese nti ya Ministry of Health, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Gender, Ministry of Water and Sanitation, Ministry of Education ayaboaboa ye nyina no edika aboaboa no a yedi akoto Africa kuo no anim a efiade yedi ho abobo kese pa na ye kɔ enim na bedu September bosome enkron no mu no eno no ewiase nyina Secretary General to safra ya omampanyi bedi anim ene ne ministers a mabobo esoi na yetumi akɔ na Ghana yesi akɔhwɛ de yeye na de ede wom se yade ba ko a yeye wa ha aso wiase nyina ni emom se Ghana fo emeka sem eho asem kire omo school feed ye yi ne se eno ye mechire wiase nyina re kwa ye fa so a ye de yakɔ yenim ene ye be ye simu pɔ ebi se ama bebre a na entomu papa kwa ye fa so ye yemfa mabu kire omo no mo so ye nti mekan masem wo ha minister we na metumi abɔ no pɔ de ahye bedamase
that's it. So before we take your questions, I noticed I didn't give you the data on piracy. Let me just outline the latest data on piracy and how severe the situation is getting. Now, if you take Q1 2021, the International Maritime Bureau reports that 43%, that's nearly half, 43% of all piracy that is being reported around the oceans of the world, they are taking place in the Gulf of Guinea. 43%. Now, their latest data reports about 38 incidents since the start of 2021, compared with 47 incidents during the same period last year. Now, while you would notice that there's a dip in the numbers for that particular quarter, their worry also is that the violence against crew is now even on the ascendancy. The kind of violence that is being demonstrated is now on the ascendancy. And it goes on to provide the number of vessels, etc., that were boarded, people who were kidnapped on the seas, etc. And it particularly is often also because of the kind of infrastructure or the absence of infrastructure, so that even if you get an alert, to track and to quickly go in and attempt to rescue or do something out there. So I'll share this data with you, and you can also share it with your audiences. But that shows you the severity. 43% of all piracy that is going on around the world. And of course, what that will mean is that it will lead to an increase in insurance costs, which will now translate into the cost of whatever goods you are importing, etc., etc. So there are things that government needs to respond to. All right, so it's a good time to take your questions. We'll take them in batches of 4 like we do. Give me a wave where you are, and then I'll come to you. I have a hand up here. 1, 2. Only 2 questions for the day. I'm happy to take them so that we close. So if you have a question, now is the time. 3. Is there a 4th? Or should I wrap up after these 3? Let me take these 3. Let's start with the gentleman in smoke.
Thank you very much. My name is Musa Lansa with GH1 TV. Whilst Doctor was doing the presentation, I was just looking at how beautiful our plans and our projections are. Unfortunately, I have followed development planning for some time, especially so that my father was a development planner. And one thing I observed is that after the documents are put together and there's a change of government, we have to go back and start again, thinking of developing a new set of plans for the country, especially with our political ideologies. These food security systems and whatever plan we have now, what measures are we putting in place such that in future, when there's a change of government, we'll not have people come to say, okay, let's go back to the drawing table and start again. Secondly, to Minister, Honorable.
Yes, sir.
The retreat is refreshing to hear issues of terrorist increases.
Refreshing to hear issues of terrorist
Yes, because
increasing.
most cases we don't discuss.
Why would that be
these
refreshing?
things. It's refreshing because it took the attention of the president. Because most cases, we pretend Burkina Faso is not close to us. And I have traveled along the border from Pulmakon all the way to Intereso. And I have used routes that are very easy to get access into our country.
Yeah.
I recall in 2015, I did a story about terrorists invading Bole in the Bole Bamboy area. The DCE came out and denied that something of that sort happened. But 2 weeks later, he and his team were attacked by these same guys, leading to the death of a military officer. What are we doing to make sure that all these porous borders we have are closed? And then another thing that came up within the week is the appointment of MMDCs. Did it come up at the retreat? And how soon are we going to get our MMDCs nominated and finally approved by the Assembly?
Very well. Nana, let me take your question.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Doc, I have 2 short questions for you. You did indicate that now capital expenditure or capital projects are going to be assessed by your outfit to get value for money. Is that not going to be in contravention? Because other agents are also doing the same thing. So why are you coming at this time after a lot of things have gone? Because you want to avoid the payment of judgment debts and all that. So it's a lot of ideas. So how are you going to do that? Alongside other agencies who are also doing the same thing. And then there was a 40-year development plan that was, I think, done by one Dr. Newmoy Thompson. Have you thrown it away? Are you incorporating it? What is it now? Because he said it's going to be a 40-year for the whole country. I don't know whether that is feasible or not feasible. And Honorable Minister, the invasion of water bodies and water areas, is it done by West African nationals, or do you have intelligence as to what that is being done by West African nationals or foreigners or who? Because we don't know whether it's coming from within or without.
What are you talking about? The terrorism threats?
Yes, and the piracy.
Okay.
Because most of the piracy is done by some high-trained distant. I don't know whether West African nationals now have also.
I'll respond to that.
Gone into that.
I will. Are there questions? No, there was somebody in the yellow shirt first before Abednego. Okay, Abednego.
Good afternoon. But my question, you're from Abednego, Asante. Me Adjuma Wadum FM. Dr. Mpacho, my question, personally, finding out, say, Obo monitoring and evaluation midterm when I'm here. We share some of the findings with us. And also, talking about issues of security and then threat on some journalists. One of our colleagues, Erasmus Asari Donko, was a member of Parliament for Asin Central, Honorable Canada Japan, issued some threat on him. The entire government can be bear on this issue because institutions like the Media Foundation for West Africa.
Last week, Wednesday, not all Parliament, now near say, it was done here. It was dealt with here.
Okay. What the person maybe say, is there any form of protection for the journalists now? Your issues are threat to them, and I say, what's the government doing about such threats? And I say, amount for comfort journalists, and I say, and then my also as a driver. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Are there any others? Doc, so you take yours and then I'll respond to the end.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. From GH1, and I get it that change of government and change of plans. Let me say that plans are made for a particular period, and we are fortunate. For us, we are guided by our own constitution, 35(6), that as soon as a president is elected, the president has 2 years, that's the farthest, to come out with a coordinated program of economic and social development policies. Okay, so that is what our constitution says. What we do technically is to look at what we call a long-term perspective plan. So the long-term perspective is what you were also talking about. So we have a long-term perspective, which is only a technical document of projections and the way we anticipate this country will run under certain assumptions up to the time we are 100 years and how we can attain that. We're saying that by the time we are 100 years, we should have a per capita income of $50,000. And we can only attain that if we grow at an average of 5% every year. Okay? So that is a long-term perspective. So once a government is elected, okay, given all these areas, the government now has to come up with a strategy together at looking at this long-term plan, its own strategy and the framework and the basis for the people giving the government the mandate to look at how it can grow, okay, that's just the economic side, at an average of 5% plus. Okay, so that is what we take it up. And I said it's a dialogue. Okay, and the dialogue is what results in the coordinated program and eventually the medium-term framework, which is 4 years. So we don't throw any plan away. If you look at the 40-year plan, the document is huge. NDPC went through the whole country, conversing, bringing people's thoughts and all this sector. It's a big thing. You cannot bring this big thing to individuals to look at it. It's projections and arithmetic and all these technical things. But we put it in a very simple 40-page document, which we call Ghana at 100. You find it on our website. We've already distributed copies to almost all the press when it was launched, and also to Parliament. So within the 40 years, you see that the Ghana at 100 document, we've also brought in, because we had to review the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda, look at that to bring it in, and then also the job agenda as the focus. We look at all that if we want to develop the economy. So that is what then culminated in the coordinated program and eventually the medium-term development plan. So if you look at the medium-term development plan, it's a 4-year segment of a long-term perspective. I hope you get it. And that is the concentration of this government, that I am going to, in the 4 years, focus on the issues related to stabilizing the economy and then revitalizing it, which has come for the second phase, and then be able to create the necessary jobs, okay, particularly targeting the youth and leveraging the new environment within which we are in, focusing on medium and small-scale entrepreneurship, and then also taking advantage of the international environment and the leveraging issues which is coming in with respect to technology and communication. So these are some of the things. So government might change, but the government is giving that environment and the leverage to be able to influence the technical planning process, and that is where we call the dialogue. You might not see it physically, but this is done every day, the dialogue. So before the Minister for Finance will come out with a budget, it has gone through a process of looking at so many things, technically, politically, from the private sector, from civil society, and other angles. And that is important. So the perspective that every government comes in and a plan changes, that is not true. The government influences the plan with the mandate for which the people have elected that government. It's important. And that avenue for this dialogue goes on every day. And that is important. And therefore, when a report is developed, the annual progress report, it is for the country, it is for the government, and it goes to Parliament. Okay, just 2 weeks ago, we were with the Parliamentary Select Committee for Poverty, scrutinizing the report for 2019. Because the 2021 is done and will eventually go there. So that is how it works. The other one is I think I've answered the long-term plan, exactly, which is good. The capital project, this is not managed by National Development Planning Commission. It's managed by the Ministry of Finance. But we have a committee, a technical committee, Ministry of Finance, NDPC, and other individuals and experts who sit on it. The key thing is that there is now a statute which says that before you can say that this is the capital project which also go into the budget, it must go through a certain scrutiny. And scrutinizing this is very important because you are analyzing it to come out with a cost benefit, to look at it critically, the financial flow. How much do we need to get this project done? And if you look at the flow of our finances, can we really finance it through and through? In terms of building it, in terms of operation, and in terms of maintenance. Because that is the reason why a lot of these projects, many projects in the past, are stopped. It's not sometimes because of an individual who doesn't want it. But the flow is said that the capital, the outlay was done in such a way that only a part of it was considered. And the flow of finances might not be available to continue with it. And going through that might take some time. So that is important. And that is where there is the 2011, the LI 2011, which has been passed. And this is equally supported by the 1039, the Act on PPP, which is bringing in the private sector to play a key role so that it's not just government funding, but also through private internal investment and then also international investment to some of these infrastructure. I'm sure you saw the film which we showed. So many things to be done, but basically relying on the operational statute, which is the PPP Act.
Doc, have you spoken to the issue of monitoring and evaluation?
The monitoring and evaluation, I think that will be the last one.
Okay,
very quickly. One is in 3.
Yeah.
Yes. So monitoring and evaluation. Monitoring evaluation. Na susu a yesusu no ene se ya hwe midterm ye fi 2018 bepem ene afi atwam May no sen na aban na ye no kure ni niema bebree na yesusu nkanka de edikan ye adwuma jobs. And Osha, Ejuma bebre aba. Na yen Yesu dia ye hwe ne se, eden ne to sina nka betumi dia soso. De betumi dia soso a ye hwe ne susu bia ne fi yanka se district development plans no. Wo hwe district development plans na I to say aban na ehwe ejuma ye de ye hwe ba bi esonko. Enti brofo say concerted action to create jobs. Nkanka ye district no e ade esi etumi picture. Nti me call apro na me ka kire mo say embre na boho ba akusia chief compound ba akusia public toilet ba akusia etwem ene bibia wo de besi obia no ese unya saint boho po na wo di si wa ese wo dwen ho den enfa so na de ba ena omo de ye den ni nyina na ese adwen ho nti ene ne ade ba ko ayetum de to so mienu so ehu eye pa ne se ye hu se first no wo ye plans na enya bedu budget complementation no na ene number bi na yesusu dia ye hu ni se emre to bre no first na ye 20% wo hwe yesusu dia di susu national development planning commission na ye 20%. Papa odi hu dwuma na eti menim ha poti ye ba ya bedu 40%. Last year afia atwam no mususu na je say 70%. Brofo esi unprecedented bin see that say this is assembly so mo hye omo ye emu ohanchichemu aduoson no omutumi di ye adwuma na che say ade a say aban no ye hye na district no ye ma chefa kese ko omo ho a no kure ne betumi aboaye e ma yakoyanim ene ye ade ba ko a ehu bebre wo ho na mje se book no so we de edoso pa enyankofo bi mo so yasene ema yetumi print na dodo nti press no ena be wo your website so wa unhia print na betu ama be so unhu unhia website betumi akọ na emom ye hu se ama anamon kese pa abam ye mpuntuo no na ye dane sa social focus ne de hwe economic focus na e di fi se be ye project ha ne de hwe adwuma ye ene eniema beboa ma adwuma aba na e betumi aboa ma yetu anamon pa.
Thank you so much, sir. Let me just add something briefly to this seeming disconnect between plans, the existence of plans and reality on the ground. Yeah. As is mentioned, the plans are very well done. But one of the things in the equation that I think we all shy away from as a country is a question of how to fund the execution of those plans. There are lots of brilliant ideas that are around. But one of the things that we often shy away from is discussing how do we fund these plans? If you look at the infrastructure plan, for example, brilliant plan, well costed, how do you fund it? And what is our collective responsibility in contributing to the funding so that that good that we look for is availed to all of us? If you noticed, in the last week, and the data was presented to Cabinet, I think somewhere this week, maybe by Wednesday, we'll bring the GRA boss here to share with you the data. The finance minister mentioned it at the launch of Ghana.gov, that if you look at direct taxes, Greater Accra region alone contributes about 80% of it. Some of the other very big economic regions, for example, are doing about 8% to it. I mean, it brings up the question really whether the capacity and potential is there, but it's not coming into the national kitty, or the economic activity in these places is overrated. Because it cannot add up that all this economic activity goes on in these places. Yet if you look at the contribution to revenue, it doesn't match up. And so we'll share with you the data, I think, on Wednesday. But it raises the question, and I hope that it's a question that you would bring people around the table to help all of us answer, get citizens to help us answer. How do we fund the development that we are looking for? And I think it will be an interesting thing to look at. Just want to respond briefly to some of the other issues. Yes, our borders are porous. And if you add to the porous borders the risk of importing COVID, for example, the risk of terrorists just crossing in and out, it means that we have to step up our efforts at ensuring that there's better policing of our borders. That means that we need to invest more in people. We need to invest more in equipment and technology that can allow you to, as it were, I mean, if you can't build a wall, you must have a way to see or patrol these borders using technology. And we must invest a lot in intelligence gathering, so that you will get the kind of intelligence about what is going on where. Else we'll be sitting ducks. If we don't confront these challenges out there, the problem is what you've mentioned. But if we don't find a way of investing some more in people, in technology, in intelligence gathering, we'll be sitting ducks. Because the trend, if you look at the numbers and the geographic locations, it should worry everybody. If you look at what's happening in the Gulf of Guinea, it should worry everybody. So how do you deploy people, technology, intelligence assets? Because you can't obviously build a wall around Ghana. How do you do that? What does it cost? How do we pay for it? Those are the things that we have to look at. What is our collective responsibility in ensuring that that is done? Else we are sitting ducks. The question of MMDCs, I think we have to have some clarity on the appointment of MMDCs. The appointment of MMDCs is the appointment of the president. It's a president's appointment. He is not going to, as it were, hold a colloquium with any group of persons to tell him who to appoint. And I think we have to be very clear in making that point that it is the president's appointment. It was not a matter of discussion in the sense that where is the list, let us go through it and let's see who is being appointed where. No, that is not what happened. But the need to quickly get MMDCs out there after the internal consultative processes was mentioned by the president, and he outlined that I think in the next couple of weeks or so, he would have been done with all of his consultations, and then he will make those appointments which are his appointments. And we have to be very clear on that one. Else you have all sorts of theories around that, you can do this to get this person appointed or not get this person appointed. It's a president's appointment. The person is the president's representative in the district. And so please let's be guided by that. The last two, so yes, the overwhelming majority of the persons involved in these attacks, be the piracy attacks or the terrorist attacks, are West Africans. West Africans from among us. We are the same people who are doing it. So I think in instances where some interceptions were done on the sea, West African nationals, they are not from Europe or anywhere else. West African nationals. I may not single out the country, but I'm sure your research will show. In the terrorist activities in the northern part of West Africa, it's West African nationals. And I just mentioned to you that at least in one instance, a Ghanaian was involved. So it's not as though somebody is the one who is harming us. We are responsible for improving the security situation. And it requires an all of government, all of country, all of West Africa approach. Already the West African countries are doing a lot of intelligence sharing after the Accra Accord, which was the initiative of President Akufo-Addo. They are sharing a lot of intelligence so that they can alert you that we have succeeded in clearing this person from our country, but we are told he's now heading towards your country. And then you can also put your systems in readiness. And that is where, if you don't have the men, logistics, intelligence to respond, then you are caught flat-footed. So it is important that we do this. And then Abednego, as I mentioned, I think on Wednesday this matter was dealt with. So your colleagues must have captured it on Wednesday. Colleagues, I thank you. This appears to be the end of our question and answer segment for today's press briefing. Doc, I want to thank you and your colleagues for being with us. We look forward to meeting you on Wednesday, during which presentation I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to see the revenue data as to who is paying and who is not paying, and where it's coming from and where it's not coming from. And maybe we can have a conversation after that. I thank you so much, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Got yelled at for. After explaining a little.
Meet Derek. He was born in Ghana, where he enrolled at the University of Ghana to study psychology.
actually started production from my mom's kitchen, which we totally messed up every day after production, and got yelled at for. After explaining a little while, she got the hang of what we were doing, and then she kept encouraging us to continue.
Minister for Information, Kojo Opoin Nkrumah, visited Derek to understand how his business operates.
So what are we going to see you in the next 1 year with your business?
So basically, what we want to achieve in general is to create a business that puts out the best quality chips, the best quality food from around the world, basically. We want to be up there with the major brands from anywhere you can mention in the world.
2 bits of advice I'll give: product quality.
Right.